So what we were looking for was really a connection at a personal level with our fellow Americans and kind of an unguarded time. And breakfast was the best meal of the day for that.
I'm Matt Weber.
And I'm Courtney Dillard.
We live in Portland, Oregon.
And we are Breakfast with Strangers.
Breakfast is a big part of Portland life, and so we found ourselves going out a lot. And Courtney is just the person where if she saw somebody sitting by the counter by themselves or maybe at a table, she'd always say, hey, we should invite them over, we should hear their story.
So we had done this just a handful of times, and then we started talking about getting married.
I think Courtney said, actually, what if we spent our honeymoon taking strangers out to breakfast around America? And I think I was pretty quick in my response of saying that sounds pretty awesome.
Leading up to the wedding, we were thinking very much of this project and what it would look like. We bought a 1997 Ford Aerostar, and we had a little bit of work done on it, and so then we had what we called the USS Pancake.
So we were on our honeymoon for just about 5 months. Had about 58 breakfasts.
Every person has their story, and so you pass people on the street or you see them in a cafe, and you really have no idea what lies beneath the surface.
It puts us in a much better space, a much friendlier place where our guard's a bit more down and we're a little more inquisitive to the folks around us.
We have kept in touch with a handful of strangers directly, and I'm assuming that we will be in touch with almost all of the strangers as we're developing our idea for a book.
How are you?
I'm doing awesome.
You look awesome.
It was an election year. So, you're constantly being bombarded with just how divided this nation is and how people are different.
So I think there is definitely this desire that the negative narrative wasn't true, and that if we went out on our own and asked our own questions, that we would find a more positive version of that story.
Politics rarely came up, and when it did come up, it was a really civil conversation that we had with folks.
I've been living in a tent on the farm since October.
I would say that my favorite breakfast was with Barry outside of Madison, Wisconsin. His lifelong dream was to be the curator of the Mustard Museum. He had been a lawyer. In fact, he had argued a case in front of the Supreme Court and won. But it was on that day that he decided that he wanted to change jobs and become the curator of the Mustard Museum. And I would like the huevos rancheros.
I'm kind of a cynical person by nature, and I would say my fellow Americans just thoroughly inspired and impressed me throughout this whole trip.
I think when I think about what did I learn from this journey, the most profound thing I learned was that life is richer when you take risks. The people that we sat down with at breakfast, the happiest people were those people that had taken risks. Some of them had been successful and some of them had failed, but all of them lived with the sense that they had tried.
And so it was really telling that, when you're at a crossroads and you have an opportunity to say yes to something or make a bold choice, you have to go that direction. And so for me, that was easily one of the better takeaways from this trip.
What is it that your dream is? What kind of quirky thing has been kind of knocking around in the back of your mind? Start planning it. Go from the dream stage to the action stage and do the work in between those two moments, and it will make you happy.